Next, we'll cover cells of the immune system. The cells of the immune system primarily focus on white blood cells. There are 5 major categories of white blood cells, and you can see the differences in their structures here. The light pink that don't have any visible spots in the middle or nuclei are your red blood cells. And then there are the 5 different kinds of white blood cells stained here. The first kind that I would like to go over are phagocytes. Phagocytes are involved in the process of phagocytosis, which is when a cell engulfs foreign cells or cell debris, digests them inside the cell, and then spits out the leftovers. The most common type of phagocyte are neutrophils, and these are the primary, most common white blood cells in your body. Phagocytes are part of the nonspecific innate defense mechanisms, and they can engulf any kind of pathogen equally. Those are different than the second most common type of white blood cell, lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are involved in the specific immune response, and when you are very young, they are not active and are fairly weak, but as you encounter different types of pathogens throughout your lifetime, they can learn to recognize these specific diseases and become stronger. This also happens with every vaccine you acquire. Lymphocytes are B cells and T cells. They are all born in the bone marrow, whereas B cells develop in the bone marrow while T cells develop in an organ called the thymus. We'll talk about that later. B cells, as we mentioned before, function primarily to make antibodies. The antibodies target specific molecules of pathogens for destruction. T cells have many different functions. That's because there are many different types of T cells. Helper T cells coordinate immune responses and make sure that your immune system is functioning at maximum efficiency. Killer T cells, on the other hand, specifically target and destroy infectious agents and other cells that may destroy the body, including, as you can see here, cancer cells. Pictured here is a cancer cell that is much larger than the cytotoxic or killer T cell. Cytotoxic and killer T cells are the same thing. The way this tiny little white blood cell is able to attack and destroy this much larger cancer cell is that the cytotoxic or killer T cells release proteins called perforin proteins that end up perforating or generating holes in the membranes of larger cells. Those holes in the membranes of the larger cells lead to cell death. That's also what's happening over here to this breast cancer cell that is being attacked by many different types of cytotoxic or killer T cells. Finally, let's move on to organs of the immune system. The organs of the immune system are primarily involved in the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is a series of vessels that parallel the blood vessels of the body. They are not the blood vessels, they just run alongside your blood vessels as a second network of vessels. The lymphatic system does not carry blood, however. Instead, it carries a fluid known as lymph. The lymph fluid is similar to the blood, except for the fact that it does not carry red blood cells. Otherwise, it carries white blood cells, antibodies, and other things. The lymph fluid moves in the lymphatic system in only one direction. It moves from the extremities toward the torso. Your blood system moves blood outward from the heart and then back toward the torso. But the lymphatic system only moves fluid back toward the torso from the extremities. In the process of moving the fluid from the extremities to the torso, this fluid ends up passing through lymph nodes. Lymph nodes are an organ of the body that are located in the neck, armpit, and groin and abdomen region. There, lymph nodes act as filters to filter out any material that does not belong in the body. Some of this material could be pathogens that could end up getting trapped in the lymph nodes. There in the lymph nodes, those pathogens are targeted for destruction by the white blood cells. Sometimes, when pathogens are trapped in lymph nodes, that can cause the lymph nodes to swell. So swollen lymph nodes are sometimes an indication of an infection. However, white blood cells located in the lymph nodes can also divide and accumulate there. And so you can end up having lymph nodes swell as a result of a proliferation or an abundance of white blood cell division. One other cause for lymph nodes to swell, however, is that, as I mentioned, lymph nodes can trap anything that doesn't belong in the body. This also can include cancer cells. Cancer cells, when trapped in the lymph nodes, can divide there, causing tumors to grow and swelling of lymph nodes as a result. So those are the 3 reasons why lymph nodes can end up swelling. Next, let's talk about how your body responds to infections over time. This is a graph showing you how antibodies are produced over time in response to one specific microbe. So, if, for instance, this is your first encounter with a specific microbe, let's say like chickenpox, this first exposure to the antigen, as you can see here, has a time period where it takes a little bit of time for the antibodies to chickenpox, to that specific microbe, to be produced. After antibodies are produced to that specific microbe, the antibodies are made, exist long enough to get your body feeling better, and then most of those antibodies disappear. However, as a result of this first exposure, your specific immune response will remember that encounter. So the next time you get exposed to the same pathogen, there is no latent period waiting for a response. Instead, the response is immediate, it is much stronger, and it tends to last longer as well. So every encounter of the same pathogen gives you a stronger and faster and more efficient immune response. This is also the basis of vaccines. I was never given the opportunity to get a chickenpox vaccine because I'm too old, but some of you may have had a chickenpox vaccine. If that's the case, if you got a chickenpox vaccine, that would be your first exposure to an antigen. And this is what would have happened. So that when you encounter chickenpox again, if you do encounter the real chickenpox virus, you get an immediate, strong response that prevents you from getting chickenpox. There are, of course, disorders of the immune system as well, and we're going to talk about two of these. The first one is allergies. Allergies are when your immune system and your host defense mechanisms respond to non-pathogenic or non-harmful agents, such as pollen, pet dander, dust, peanuts, or other things. This results in an overstimulation of your immune system, which can eventually cause harm to the body, including, in the worst case, death. In those cases, when allergies become life-threatening, this is referred to as anaphylaxis. And this is seen with severe allergies to things like bee stings or peanuts. Symptoms of allergies and anaphylaxis include hives on your skin, watery nose, and eyes. All of this is from histamine, causing the blood vessels to open up, allowing for increased blood flow and bodily fluids to leak out of your eyes and nose. In anaphylaxis, this increased blood flow is also what causes death. As a result of opening up of the blood vessels, your blood pressure lowers dramatically, and the lungs fill with fluid. Tissues in the lungs end up not allowing you to absorb oxygen, causing suffocation and possibly even death. The immediate cure for anaphylaxis or a severe allergic reaction is the use of an EpiPen. EpiPens contain the drug epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, and this helps save lives. What epinephrine or adrenaline does is causes the blood vessels to constrict, meaning it counters the effects of the histamine. Constriction of the blood vessels maintains your blood pressure and prevents fluid from accumulating in your lungs. Allergies have no known cause, though we do know that predisposition to allergies can run in families. So if your parents have strong allergies to things, you are also likely to have an increased risk of having strong allergies. However, the thing to which you are allergic may vary from generation to generation. Next, we'll talk about autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune diseases are when the immune system attacks tissues of the body, destroying important tissues of the body. Examples of autoimmune diseases are what you see here. Rheumatoid arthritis, or arthritis that a child may end up with, is when the immune system attacks the joints. If the immune system attacks glial cells of the central nervous system, this is what's referred to as multiple sclerosis. Type 1 diabetes, which is the type of diabetes you get again when you're a child or a young teenager, is when the immune system attacks and destroys the pancreas. And finally, if the immune system attacks the intestines, you can end up with IBS or inflammatory bowel disease. Another one that's not listed here is lupus, which is particularly devastating and very hard to diagnose because it's when the immune system attacks many portions of the body, including the heart, joints, skin, and lungs. The causes of autoimmune diseases remain largely unknown, though again, genetics and the environment likely play a role. Diagnosis is often difficult, and treatment is given to suppress the immune system entirely to keep the immune system from attacking different areas of the body. However, a weakened immune system also leaves the individual more likely to acquire an infection. That's it for our lecture on the immune system. I hope it was informative, and I hope you enjoyed it.